Welcome to the December 19th, 2020. It's all good. Welcome to the December 19th, 2023 regular meeting of the Ann Arbor Planning Commission. For detailed information meeting procedures, please review the full printed meeting agenda provided. Ms. Kelly, will you please call the roll?
Yes, noting that Commissioners Abram and Sauvé will be absent this evening, along with Councilmember Dish. Commissioner Lee.
Here.
Commissioner Weish.
Here.
Commissioner Mills.
Here.
Commissioner Hammerschmidt.
Here.
Commissioner Weatherby.
Here.
Commissioner Clark. You have a quorum.
Thank you. Moving on to item number 3, approval of the agenda. May I have a motion, please, to approve? Moved by Commissioner Mills and seconded by Commissioner Weich. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Motion carries. May I have a motion to approve the minutes of the December 5th, 2023, moved by Commissioner Hammerschmidt and seconded by Commissioner Mills. All those in favor of, is there any discussion of the minutes?
Sure. Just a typo on the second section of the document where it says to look at the, or please review to the video recording. It just cuts off at please review. And there should have been a continuation of that. And if you give me a minute, because you're moving really fast, I could.
Oh yeah, that's fine.
Find it in the document.
So, yeah, no, of course.
Tell you exactly where it is.
While he's pulling that up, any other discussion of the minutes? Well,
all right, it's page 6.
Okay.
Under section 9B, under commission discussion. It says the commission took into consideration the proposed requests and discussed the matter further. And then in brackets, it says for a complete record of the discussion, comma, please, and then it breaks off. So if it just continues there,
gotcha.
But we can approve it with that correction.
Absolutely, we can make that correction.
Perfect. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. We're moving on to section number 5. Next up are reports of the Planning Commission and written communication. Councilmember Dish being present, Mr. Leonard. Hi. Do you have any report?
I do. Hello. We had an active city council meeting last night. There were several items relative to the Planning Commission I wanted to show progress on. One is first reading was approved for modifications to personal solar energy systems to provide more flexibility for those to be located in front yard setback requirements, and that they would no longer be subject to the
Mr. Leonard, we can't hear you. Sorry. I think it was when Mr. Leo was joining. If you could.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can. Please continue. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. After, in addition to solar energy system modifications, amendments to the office district to create the used banquet hall, as well as some clarification between veterinary services and boarding services, were approved on first reading. The proposed Plymouth Road TC1 rezoning was approved. However, there was a modification. 8 parcels that the Planning Commission had added to that have been removed by the City Council. That was based on the conclusion that they had to be noticed at the Planning Commission rather than being added at the table. My apologies, that was, during that discussion, I indicated that I thought that that would be adequate. So if the Planning Commission is interested in pursuing those, that would require additional action. Those were the PUD properties on Green Road that were added to that. The rest of the parcels were approved on first reading. And then 2 approvals were completed. Second reading and final approval of the site plan and rezoning for the Village of Ann Arbor site plan amendments, adding 120 additional units. Those reached conclusion at the City Council meeting. I think you all received a communication. I do want to acknowledge that Commissioner Sauvé is not in attendance and has resigned from the commission. Just from a staff perspective, I really appreciate her contributions over the time on the commission. Definitely going to be missed. Hope she's feeling better soon. And I also want to acknowledge one of our staff members will be appearing at his last planning commission this evening. City Planner Chris Chang is going to be retiring hearing from the city early next year. So this is going to be, I anticipate his last appearance formally before the Planning Commission. Chris has been with the department for over 26 years, an absolute, between him and recently retired Jeff Kahn, losing a lot of institutional memory and experience in the city. But I just, for Chris, he's always been somebody who's willing to step in, volunteer, take on projects, and I definitely will miss having him around. So if you get an opportunity, make sure you get all of your questions out to him tonight, because you won't get many more opportunities. Thank you.
Thank you. And again, another thank you to Commissioner Salve for her service, as well as Mr. Chang. Do other commissioner officers or liaisons have anything to report? Written communications are included in today's packet. We're going to move on to agenda number 6, which is public comment. This is an opportunity for persons to speak up to 3 minutes about an issue that is not listed as a public hearing on this agenda. We'll first call on individuals present to address the commission. Then we'll call on remote participants. To speak during this public hearing remotely, please press *9 if listening by phone, or use the raise hand feature if viewing through the web link. For phone access, please call 877-853-5247 and enter meeting ID 977-6634-1226. City staff will select callers who've raised their hands using the last 3 digits of their phone number or by name if available, and you'll hear an automated announcement saying that the host is allowing you to speak. So when speaking, please move to a quiet area, mute any background sounds so that we can hear you clearly, and for either method of participation, please state your name and address at the beginning of your comments. Is there anyone present that would like to speak at this time? Mr. Garber. Good to see you.
Thanks, Chair. I wasn't going to speak, but as I strolled in, I heard the news that Commissioner Salve has resigned from the Planning Commission, and I'm kind of shocked and dismayed to hear this. She's been a consistent progressive voice on commission, and I will personally, miss her presence here, and I can only wish her well. And I will also miss Mr. Chang's very professional work on staff, on different petitions. I respect him a lot as well. So 2 big losses tonight. Just wanted to comment on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Garber. Would anyone else present like to speak? And this is on items that is not listed on the agenda. Seeing no one else, do we have remote speakers?
I do not currently see any hands raised, Mr. Chair.
Give it a few more seconds. Okay, we will close this public comment. We will have a chance to do public comment on those agenda items each. So we'll go on to agenda number 7, public hearing scheduled for next business meeting. Staff.
The next regular meeting and the only meeting in January for this body will be on January 16th. There is a returning item. It was already noticed and it was postponed. That's the street vacation for 2845, I believe, South State. Planner DeLeo, I'm looking at you. Yeah, okay. I just wrote South Street. That's not right. And there are no additional public hearings scheduled for your next business meeting, so it should be a light agenda. We had one possible public hearing, but they weren't quite ready.
Perfect. Thank you. We're going to move on to Section 8A, which is unfinished business. This is amendments to the Chapter 55 of the Unified Development Code. Transportation impact analysis requirements and review criteria, the Unified Development Code amendments. This is amending Chapter 55, Sections 5.29.8 and 5.29.6 related to the traffic or transportation impact analysis requirements, review criteria. This is amendments to that Section 5.29.8, required plan information, paragraph E. Transportation impact analysis, and Section 5.29.6, site plans, Paragraph E, criteria for review of a traffic impact analysis. The staff recommendation is approval. So we'll move on to staff presentation.
Yes, and we have on hand Planner DeLeo, who will be guiding us through the staff report, and also we're joined by Cynthia Redinger, civil engineer in our transportation group, who has graciously joined us to help provide additional perspective, ask any technical burning questions that you all have about this amendment. And I will hand it over in whenever you are ready, Planner DeLeo.
Thank you for bearing with me. I feel a little bit like a hot mess over here.
Your mic is a little low.
All right. Full screen and screen sharing to here. Share that. Let's see. Did it follow? All right, looking better. All right, thank you very much. These are proposed, this is a proposed amendment to the Unified Development Code, as mentioned. It is 2 amendments to Section 529 in subsections .8 and .6. These are related to our transportation impact analysis requirements and review criteria. We first talked to the Ordinance Revisions Committee about this in the summer, and we prepared a diagnosis and an outline of what the issues were. In very high-level summary, our Unified Development Code refers to transportation impact analyses. We refer to traffic, and these are fairly outdated terminology. And we proposed a series of amendments to modernize and also reflect what our staff is currently asking for. Specifically, we ask for multimodal transportation impact analyses, and when we talk about, we don't talk about just traffic, but we talk about transportation, we talk about pedestrians, non-motorized transportation, as well as vehicular transportation. We are putting forth tonight 2 amendments. 3 were conceptually discussed, but we are putting forth 2 tonight. These are relatively small and easier fixes that don't take a lot of analysis and will provide an incredible amount of bang for our buck. We will be being clear about what our expectations are for site plan submittal requirements, and we will be clear about what our expectations for review criteria. The component that it would be missing would be the standards for site plan approval, adding any standards related to traffic impact, multimodal traffic impact analyses to our site plan standards. We'll try to tackle that at a later date. It would require a more robust conversation, discussion. It will require some policy decisions. Let me get back to my staff report. Again, the hot mess situation. It's not the staff report that I'm going to stop sharing for a second.
While you pull that up, just a reminder, that was a cover sheet to just remind the commission that this item had a small typo. Unfortunately, we felt like it was significant enough that we renoticed because it was a change in number for the section, the UDC that would be adjusted. So the staff report that was included in your packet on 12/5 is the one that we'll be reviewing tonight. How am I doing, Alexis? Great.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Perfect.
That's what I thought.
All right, and just a second, here we go, should go to, all right, I'm going to take these proposed amendments, so now I'll talk about the actual proposed amendments, and I'll take them out of order, because out of order, they are arranged in order of the Unified Development Code, but they are not, I think, in the most logical order for discussions. First, we are proposing an amendment to section 529.8E, which is the transportation impact analysis. Right now, it speaks to the requirement for following the methodology of the 2010 Institute for Transportation Engineers Transportation Impact Analysis, or latest revision thereof. So as I mentioned, we are already asking applicants to provide a multimodal transportation impact analysis following updated methodology. And our proposed amendment is simply to state that, to strike the language right now that talks about. Let's try that. Better. Our proposed amendment is to strike the current language and say that site plans that propose to generate more than 3 trips per unit per peak hour or 50 trips per peak hour shall provide a multimodal transportation impact analysis consistent with the 2023 Institute of Transportation Engineers multimodal transportation impact analyses. We are also proposing language that specifically address area plans, asking that information provided for specific criteria, so the magnitude of the rezoning will be can be understood. And we are proposing to strike then the following language that provides unclear requirements. We don't need to repeat what the transportation impact analysis should include when it's already in the ITE manual. This makes it confusing about which takes precedence over. Then the second amendment that we are proposing is to section 529(6)E, the criteria for review of a traffic impact analysis. We propose to add the word multimodal and then switch the references from traffic or parking to multimodal transportation. In the packet is our staff report plus our proposed amendments and the diagnosis and commentary that was provided to the Ordinance Revisions Committee back in the summer. Also joining us by Zoom is Transportation Engineer Cynthia Redinger. I think that will conclude my staff presentation, but I am more than happy to answer any follow-up or clarification questions, and I'm sure Cynthia is as well.
Thank you, Ms. DeLeo. We're going to move on to public hearing. This is an opportunity for persons to speak up to 3 minutes about this item. We'll first call on individuals here to address the commission, then remote participants. To speak during this public hearing remotely, please press star 9 if listening by phone or use the raise hand feature if viewing through the web link. For phone access, please call 877-853-5247 and enter meeting ID 977-6634 and 1226. City staff will select callers that have raised their hand using the last 3 digits of the phone number or by name if available. You'll hear an automated announcement that the host is allowing you to speak, and when speaking, please move to a quiet area and mute any background sounds so we can hear you clearly. For either method of participation, please state your name and address at the beginning of the comments. And is there anyone present that would like to speak at this time regarding the amendment to transportation multimodal analysis? Seeing no one, do we have any remote participants?
We do. Adam Goodman, you have permission to address the commission for 3 minutes.
Hi, Adam Goodman, 400 Virginia Avenue. I sent a message to the Ordinance Revisions Committee back in the summer when this was first coming up with a few concerns. I'll try to get through them here as well. First and sort of most foundationally, I'm not a transportation engineer, but I've read commentary from some folks, including luminaries like Donald Shoup, which basically suggest that the methodologies from the Institute for Transportation Engineers, or ITE, that we're using here, both in the old version of this ordinance as well as the proposed changes, that they're basically junk science. And, you know, that these sort of prescribed trip generation rates are based on limited data of poor statistical significance. And the entire premise that land uses are the only thing that create trips is a little bit problematic given all we know about how, you know, the design of the built environment itself is what sort of induces or creates demand as well. The new methodology is maybe still better than the old one in terms of achieving our city's goals, because at least it does consider the needs of bikes and pedestrians and non-motorized users. On that front, I'm a little bit concerned that we're still talking about, you know, even multimodal level of service still seems like it would include vehicular level of service to me. And I would like for us to stop considering vehicular level of service at all because we have a goal in the city to reduce vehicle miles traveled by 50%. If developments are going to continue leading us to widen roads, then that's counter to our goals. I would also note that, one other thing I've heard about these transportation impact analyses is that they're quite burdensome for developers. So I actually spent a fair bit of time over the last day or two reading the economic development report that the city just released. It was attached to the city council agenda last night. I would recommend everybody, all of you, read that as well. It's actually a fantastic document, and it addressed this very question that we're discussing tonight, kind of on 2 points. One was it did recommend approving these changes because they're more in line with our city's goals, but also it said that we should decouple transportation impact analyses and several other sort of technical, detailed planning processes from
10
site
seconds.
plan, so that developers don't have to do all of this before even getting to have an approved site plan. And doesn't look like we're considering that tonight. I hope we will in the future.
Thank you for your comments. Your time is up. Our next caller is SH. You have permission to address the Planning Commission for 3 minutes.
Hello, how's everyone doing today? I am reading the agenda as public comments. Persons may speak for 3 minutes about an item that is not listed as a public hearing on this agenda. Please state your name and address for the record. My name is Samuel Hayes, and I live in Ypsilanti, Michigan, but I do
I'm sorry
work
to interrupt
full-time
you. I just wanted to let you know that the time to speak on a item that's not listed on the agenda has actually transpired, and right now we are on the public hearing for amendments to transportation impact analysis requirements. You can
My
make a
apologies
comment
for
on
missing
that.
it, then I'll be silent. Thank you so much.
Okay, there is another opportunity to speak at the end of the agenda.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
You're welcome. There are no other hands raised, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. With that, I'm going to read the proposed motion, which is the Ann Arbor City Planning Commission recommends that the mayor and city council approve the amendments to the Chapter 55 Unified Development Code in sections 5.29.8 and 5.29.6 related to the transportation impact analysis requirements and review criteria. Section 5.29.8 required plan information, and Section 5.29.6 site plans, paragraph E, criteria for review of a traffic impact analysis to update references, simplify language, and ensure multimodal emphasis. Moved by Commissioner Weich, seconded by Commissioner Weatherby. We are in discussion. Would anyone like to kick us off? Commissioner Hammerschmidt.
Thank you. This is minor, but before that, I would like to say, I think, in absence of a better standard, just to address the public comment, I think it's great that we're updating this to look at the newer version of the ITE standard and that it's multimodal. And I really like that we're scrubbing out all of these words in the UDC. It's a good step towards our unzoning. My minor thing, so Section 1E, it says criteria for review of a multimodal traffic impact analysis. Do we want to change that traffic to transportation? Should that be transportation to make it consistent with calling it a transportation impact analysis everywhere?
I think that's a fine idea. Cynthia, nod if you agree. Okay. We'll make that change.
When you were talking and I was reading this, I was like, what's the difference between a multimodal traffic impact analysis and a transportation impact analysis? And then I realized they were referring to probably the same thing. Mm-hmm. So in that same vein, I'm wondering if Section 2E should be called multimodal transportation impact analysis?
I'll make a note of that when this moves forward to City Council. We'll make that change. And I'll also do a sort of a search in the whole UDC to check for, first at least check for consistent phrase and go from there to see based on what I find.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Weatherby.
Yeah, so first of all, I just want to say that I think this is a really good step forward. It might be a small step, but it is, it's been needed, and so it's good to have it here. I did also have one question, which is probably outside of this, but I just wanted to put it here during this time, is also looking at multimodal impacts during construction, because one of the things that I think we're seeing a lot is that is also still based on traffic, and that sidewalks get closed and they get closed for months. Main Street, near me, there's a sidewalk that's just been closed for months, and it's a very heavily pedestrianized space, and it just feels like the roadway has had more consideration for construction impacts. So again, that's not necessarily part of this, but I just wanted to throw that out there while we were talking about this, is that kind of using the multimodal transit across the board for all consideration of projects.
Thank you. Any other commissioners? I can add in my 2 cents. I think it does make sense to me to update at least the 210 standards to the 2023. And as Commissioner Hammerschmidt said, that in absence of something that is better, this is still the right move forward. I did have a chance to, Ms. DeLeo, what has been some feedback from some of the civil engineers that regularly conduct this type of study? Has any feedback been given?
I've not received much feedback from the proposed amendment itself. I think that we did go through, and I'll ask Cynthia to weigh in as well. I feel we went through a little bit of growing pains several years ago while we started asking for a multimodal impact study. Caught some people a little bit off guard because people who tend to be used to just referring back to our standards. And I think there was a lot of questions of what do you mean by this? What are the parameters? And then insert transportation jargon here. But I think that less now, because as the community is getting used to this, we have been consistently asking for this for a while now. So that I think the learning curve was just in the expectations, not so much how to perform it, but what our expectations were. Cynthia, do you agree, disagree, or have anything to add?
Yes, thank you. I would say that that's a very accurate representation of what we've heard from the consultant community. We have been asking for some of these items for quite some time now because it was consistent with our policies, and we knew that questions would come up from decision makers. And at this point in time, this new document really does give more structure to the consultants for how to perform some of these analyses that they are less familiar with because other jurisdictions have not been asking for that information. So I think, on the overall standpoint of things, that this document has been very helpful and made it easier for all of our consultants and for new consultants to understand the items that we're asking for.
Got it. Thank you. And I think that if we're asking consultants to consider this standard, then it's important for us to codify it and make that expectation clear. So to me, looking at sidewalk gaps, ADA access to bus stops, and safety performance in our intersections as a result of development is in line with our Vision Zero plan. So with that being said, to me, again, this helps to clarify, simplify expectations, even if it does impose larger, I think Mr. Goodman had indicated that it imposes some level of expectations of developers. That said, it's already occurring. We're just looking to make sure that it's in writing so that we can point to it together. Commissioner Mills.
Thank you. And your question in combination with Commissioner Hammerschmidt's question has me asking a question back to staff. And I'm not sure, Ms. Redinger, maybe this is, I don't know if there's anything else that we ask for in terms of the traffic or within your purview side that is not codified right now. That similarly, we have people say like, I don't know what the rules are, or that I don't see that in your UDC. Can you think of things like that? Is there anything else, I should say, that we need, that in the traffic world we need to make, bring the UDC up to speed with our practice?
That's a really good question. And I think I would need to think about that a little bit. This is a really good step towards creating a level playing field for everyone who is producing transportation impact analyses. Transportation and planning staff are always in ongoing conversations about these things, and I think that's definitely something that we can continue to consider.
Great. And then, since that was specific to traffic, I guess this is more for you, Ms. Leo. Like, are there other things, right, that we ask for? And I'm thinking about this in the context of unzoning and like wanting to get a full handle on the things that we're asking of developers to make it clearer to them within the UDC, but also so that we can figure out, like, are there opportunities to prioritize, to elevate some, again, this is within that context of unzoning. So are there, and maybe this is, I don't need to put you on the spot, but like, if there are other things that should be on our radar of something that we've been asking of developers for a number of years that haven't made it to the UDC, those I would think would be something that we ought to, I would think we ought to encourage putting that down on paper.
I think that what you're getting at is precisely our next level, next phase, because the piece that we are missing is more concrete guidance or regulations or standards about what we do with the information that is within a transportation study. These things are going a long way to standardizing, codifying it, set the level playing field about what you should study. But the next step, as we mentioned, would be then what do we do with this information? And that's a more of a that involves a policy discussion, because and then we can approach how to prioritize projects that are maybe improving, I'm sorry, the words are escaping me, but like improving the our bike network, or improving, working toward our Vision Zero goals, maybe reducing fatalities, making intersections safer. There's a lot of components then. So these are helping get the information that we need. The next phase would be sitting down and having a discussion with an engagement about what to do and how to prioritize and how to rank that information that we get.
Yeah. And I would add in, or this is my 2 cents worth on that if we're not using the information that we get, if there's not a like, so what do we do with this? Then that's an opportunity for us to cut things to the point of like, every study costs money, right? Mm-hmm. So let me rephrase my question to be a little bit less on the policy side and more on the, are we asking of other kinds of studies for other kinds of things that we haven't codified? Because I think that this would, again, allow us to see what are all of the things that we're asking for when petitioners come before us, like all of the different kinds of studies, and if there are similar gaps there that we might want to think about.
Yeah, I'm understanding, and I think that we can work on that. We can work on that. Right now, we have a Cynthia might be able to help if it's a high or low threshold, but we have certain thresholds. It's the 50 trips in the peak hour. Changing that would then reduce the burden or increase the burden on what kinds of projects. Maybe we are, and then maybe our trigger points are not quite the right. Wow, I'm really not doing a great job this evening. But what I'm trying to say is we didn't tackle that part, but yes, it could be a conversation as well to what kinds of projects, the scale of projects. Is 50 trips in the peak hour the right number? We didn't tackle that with this. If we make that number higher, we'll get less projects that require a traffic impact study, but maybe that does help overall the development review process. And maybe overall maybe it shouldn't be trips in the peak hour. Or we could give exemptions for projects that have a super low percentage of parking provided or no parking, so on and so forth.
And outside of the traffic area, or transportation area, I should say, we don't run into things in other realms where the developer says, I didn't know I needed to do that study, or I didn't know I needed to submit that because it's not in the UDC. That's actually part of what I was trying to get at too.
Got it. I don't think that we run into that too much.
Okay.
Would you, since you can just nod, do you agree, don't agree? She's nodding. I'm saying she's agreeing, yeah. I think that if...
anything else, I mean, and even from our perspective, our threshold is pretty consistent with standard industry practice. We do get some pushback from sometimes folks when they take trip generation and they distribute it out by our modal distribution that we have in town. They want to not produce transportation impact analyses because they're focused on the number of vehicular trips that a project is developing, but I don't necessarily think that's a total lack of understanding. I think that's just making sure that our preferences are understood.
Thanks.
This is for my edification. Like, for example, the Michigan Building Code or Michigan Energy Code will get updated every 3 years. How frequently does this ITE standards? Because we're jumping from 2010 to 2023. And so just for, I guess what I'm thinking is once it's published, right? We don't have any inadvertent references. They go and revise it and issue a 2020 revision that suddenly subjects us to standards that we didn't expect ourselves to tether to. So what's the frequency of updates? And again, this is just for my edification. I don't know the answer to that. Maybe Ms. Renninger or Ms. DeLeo?
On average, it's been about every 10 years that the update has happened, and usually an update occurs when there's a shift in industry practices. So this update to this recommended practice really reflects the fact that more communities are asking developers and consultants to provide this information as part of their transportation impact analyses. So the ITE recommended practice has been updated to really reflect what communities are asking for.
Gotcha. Thank you. Every decade. All right. Any other commissioners? Seeing none, I think, and this is, procedurally speaking, this is a recommendation for City Council's adoption of the UDC change. Is that correct?
Yes, and I meant to mention this during roll call, but because there are 6 of you this evening, any action, so you did vote to update your bylaws to require 5 votes. However, that has yet to be approved by council. And so for tonight and until that happens, you still need 6 votes to advance any item affirmatively to council and to approve any item. And that will also be the case for this item.
Understood. Thank you. We'll move on to roll call vote.
On the motion as presented, Chair Lee,
Yes.
Commissioner Weiss,
Yes.
Commissioner Hammerschmidt,
Yes.
Commissioner Clark,
Yes.
Commissioner Mills,
Yes.
and Commissioner Weatherby.
Yes.
That item carries.
Thank you. We are now moving on to agenda number 9A, regular business. This is 333 East Williams Street site plan for City Planning Commission approval. A 16-story, 202 dwelling unit residential building with 4 surface parking spaces accessed from East Williams Street. The zoning designation is D1 Downtown Core and the Liberty Division Character Overlay District and secondary street frontage designation. The total square footage floor area is 230,126 square feet. The staff recommendation is approval, and I believe we have some petitioners here for their presentation. Welcome.
We do this evening. We will have Andrew Savoy joining us by Zoom. I see that he's just been able to join as a panelist. And we also have others who may assist in the presentation.
Yeah.
And we also have on staff planner Chang for staff comments. You have 10 minutes to present to the commission, Mr. Savoy.
All right.
Floor is
I'm gonna
yours.
Share my screen here. All right, can everybody see this?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Good evening, everybody. My name is Andy Savoy. I'm presenting on behalf of Core Spaces, Scene 43, North Milwaukee, Chicago, Illinois. We are the applicant for this item tonight. I apologize for not being able to be there in person. I'm abroad right now, but I do have a few members of my team in the room. I have Joe Gatto and Alyssa Galina from Core Spaces. Sitting in front of you, I also have Ashvini Denoy, who is our architect, and Luke Bonner, who has been assisting with the approvals process. I also have Scott Betzel, who's our civil engineer, on the line virtually to answer questions that may come up. A little bit about Core Spaces. So we are a national developer and owner and manager of kind of student-oriented buildings. We've been in business for about 14 years, and in that time we have developed or acquired about 30,000 beds across the country. And so the map you're looking at here shows everywhere where we have developed, we are typically an owner, operator, and a long-term holder. So every dot that's in red, we still own and operate. We did sell a portfolio that's shown in blue, but the ongoing strategy going forward is to be more of a long-term holder and manager of our assets. We have a lot of experience in the Midwest. Just to show you kind of the scale and quality of the projects we develop. One of these projects is the Hub on Campus on Huron, which is kind of shown in the middle row at the right side of the screen. And we've worked on other sites in the past in Ann Arbor and also have a few more in the hopper. So you will be seeing me hopefully several more times this year for other projects. The site I'm here to talk to you about today is 333 East William. That is the Ann Arbor Credit Union. It is bounded on the south by William, the north by Library Lane. The Ann Arbor Public Library is to the west, and then to the east we have the rear lot lines of residential structures that face Division Street. In the William Street view, top right, you can see there's a relatively new bike lane that goes along William. In front of the site, there's currently broken up by 2 curb cuts that lead into the credit union parking lot. And then the Library Lane view, which is the rear of the site, the north side of the site, you can see some meter parking and kind of some, just kind of the character of that sidewalk that we would be abutting to on the north side of the project. And so the proposed development is this. It's a 16-story building. It's 202 units. Almost 650 people would live here. There are only 4 on-site parking spaces for staff, and we have been coordinating with the DDA to come up with for residents who would like parking to the DDA, and they could store their cars in the adjacent Library Lane underground parking deck. We have programmed all of the ground floor uses to be active uses except for the west side, which is our service kind of alley. And we're also proposing kind of a well-lit mid-block crossing from William to Library Lane as part of this project. If all goes as planned, we would start construction kind of at the end of Q2 this year and then deliver about 2 years later in June of '26. And I'm just going to say this now so I don't run out of time. We are seeking approval subject to the new UDC language that was recently approved, where FAR premiums were removed. As we were going through the process of staff review, particularly the affordable premium became kind of an issue as the financial markets, interest rates increased and the financial markets adjusted to that. And this new removal basically solidifies the viability of this deal. And another thing I need to say is, there are 6 of you, so I do need a clean sweep tonight. So if at the end of this presentation, any of you are feeling uncomfortable or have concerns that have not been addressed, I would implore you to consider postponement rather than a flat-out denial, because if I get one nay vote, that is a denial, and a postponement is a much more salvageable scenario for us. I'll start with the off-site improvements. There are 3 of note. The first is a new crosswalk across Fifth Ave, just south of Library Lane, that would be paid for as part of the project. The second is removing some of the metered parking along Library Lane to provide for a new fire lane, and that was requested by the Ann Arbor Fire Department. The third off-site improvement is all new amenity zone pavers and street furniture as spec'd by the DDA, and we'll also be closing up one of the 2 curb cuts that currently go into the site, so only one will remain. The other one will go away, so that provides a better continuous bike lane there and pedestrian experience. These are the ground floor plans. Or the right is kind of a mezzanine level. And so you can see we have programmed the south part of the site, which is on the bottom of the page, to be our main lobby that flanks William Street. And then the east and north, which flank Library Lane and the rear lot line of the adjacent residential structures, those yellow units are townhome units that would actually exit right onto grade. And so in that left image, we have a trash staging area. We've coordinated with solid waste to ensure that this works for them, that they can actually get a trash truck in, tip what they need to tip, and then do a hammerhead turn and exit the site facing forward so they don't have to back up into William at all. And then also we're proposing this mid-block pedestrian connection that serves as an entryway to some of the townhomes, but also would be a public connection between Library Lane and William. This is what that would look like, just the general character of it. And so the view here is from Library Lane looking down towards William. We're proposing new fencing along the property line that would have integrated lighting. So this space would be well lit at night and safe. And then flanked with all active uses. So the diagram at the bottom shows, between Library Lane and William, you have our leasing office that looks out onto this, and then you have 4 townhomes looking out onto this 3-block connection. This shows the typical floor all the way to the left. So our typical units, they start from micros. We have studios, 2 bedrooms, 3 bedrooms, and 4 bedrooms on the typical floor. The middle image shows the top floors. And so we have some kind of duplex style townhome units up there, as well as an amenity room with an exterior amenity deck. And that is shown in detail in the image to the right, where we have the pool shown there and kind of how we fleshed out that design. As far as materiality goes, the idea was to stick with these kind of solid civic materiality components towards the base of the building. And then as we move up, this turns into this more dynamic gridded system. So you have these kind of undulating glass and solid panels that create some movement above, and kind of a stark contrast to the bottom 2 floors of the building, which are this brick element with these kind of regular openings. And so we have, brick, certain stone accents, some faux wood, and then these gridded elements are a metal panel system with windows.
Mr. Savoy,
there is some EFIS.
Just wanted to let you know you have a minute and a half remaining.
Okay, thank you. So there is some EFIS proposed, but only in the middle of the building where you can't see it from the public way. These are the elevations, kind of showing you how that works in elevation. So you have the base, the gridded element, and then the top, which is actually set back, so you can't really see it from the street. This is the north and west elevation. This is also going to pursue LEED Gold, and so we have several strategies here. We can answer questions on that because I'm running out of time. This is how that entry would look. This is kind of a far out view of the building. And then the benefits, increased housing stock, sustainable construction, increased tax base. We're creating jobs, a lot of investment in public infrastructure. And so a lot of reasons to vote for this. And so, I would ask that we get approved subject to the new rules without the FAR premiums. And I would just want to kind of reinforce that as I turn it over to you guys for questions.
Mux Kelly, actually, one of the cool things I think I can do is to give the petitioner a little more time to go back to that slide regarding benefits. So if you could take 2-3 more minutes to actually go back and
Absolutely,
talk about the
Mr.
project
Chair.
benefits, talk to us about environmental sustainability. So
Absolutely.
yeah, I think that's the only power I have.
Sure. So we would propose to pursue a LEED Gold building. This is actually an all-electric building. And so we are working on a preliminary scorecard that shows that that is very achievable for this building. A few of the kind of sustainable elements of this building is that we are a very walkable location. We have limited amount of parking. We're making use of the deck that already exists there. We are reducing the heat island effect by using pavers and other kind of elements that landscaping elements that help to reduce the heat island effect on the roof. All Energy Star rated fixtures to try to reduce indoor water use. And we're designing the project to perform better than the ASHRAE standards. We'll spec all low emitting materials. And so we're going through that process now, and we feel like we can commit to that LEED Gold standard. And then as far as the overall project benefits, we are, proposing a project that is sustainable, as I just said. It would increase the real estate tax base quite a bit, create roughly 250 construction jobs and 10 permanent jobs for our staff members that would be hired to run this building. We would remove the curb cut that is currently breaking up that bike lane, so we're basically extending the usable section of the bike lane. We're providing a new crosswalk at 5th Avenue, and then we are providing that mid-block pedestrian connection that would actually have a public use easement down it so that the public could use that.
Thank you, Mr. Savoy. We'll move on to staff presentation. Mr. Chang.
Okay, I think Mr. Savoy did an excellent job of covering a lot of the topics. I will probably just add on to, you do have a draft development agreement that was included with this packet. As he was saying, there is a public access easement to connect Library Lane to East William. There's also a parks contribution for downtown parks. I want to say it's around $125,000, but it is in the draft development agreement for the exact amount. We've also got confirmation on LEED Gold that was part of the development agreement. And there's also a DDA contribution for removal of those 5 parking meters. We're still working out the numbers on that, but once we figure out that amount, that'll also be added to the draft development agreement that will head to City Council for approval. There was one landmark tree on the west side of the site the east side of the site that is being proposed to be saved, but they've added 4 mitigation trees on the site, I think 3 down at the southeast and 1 to the northeast part of the site. They may be scrolling through right now to take a look at it. Let's see, this also was reviewed by the Design Review Board back in April, and overall, they looked at this proposal favorably. The materials, the height, I think the bulk was all looked at favorably, so they haven't made too many changes from when it was seen by the DRB. There are 4 parking spaces proposed, as was mentioned. 1 will be at least EV installed, and the other 3 will be capable. And I think that kind of covers everything, but I am open to any questions you may have.
Thank you. With that, we are going to public comment. This is an opportunity for persons to speak up to 3 minutes about this item. We'll first call on individuals present to address the commission, then remote participants. To speak during this public hearing remotely, please press *9 if listening by phone, or use the raise hand feature if viewing through the web link. For phone access, please call 877-853-5247 and enter meeting ID 977-6634. 1226. City staff will select callers that have raised their hands using the last 3 digits of the phone number or by name if available. You'll hear an automated announcement letting you know that the host is allowing you to speak. And when speaking, please move to a quiet area and mute any background noise so that we can hear you clearly. For either method of participation, please state your name and address at the beginning of the comments. Is there anyone present that would like to speak to the commission at this time? Please.
Good evening. My name is Ronald Nelson.
Oh, yeah. I think you can raise the podium if you'd like. Yeah. Yeah.
You got it.
All right.
We'll wait.
Yeah. Cool.
That's fine. I'm used to it.
The mic lifts too. I mean, you could pick it up. By lift.
Okay. All right, let's try this again. Good evening. My name is Ronald Nelson. I work at Intercooperative Council, 337 East William Street. The general manager is on a plane back, so I get to speak for the organization. Just some considerations. We were on the April 10th meeting. We did observe it. So their plans, I understand plans have already been going forward, but we did ask, the general manager did have some considerations. One is the pool is on the 15th floor. We cannot tell from the plans if it is indoor or outdoor. If it is outdoor, what is the material for the fence that will keep objects from going from the 15th floor over? I have worked at a pool in the past. While some people might say that doesn't happen, even with the fence, it happens with the area that surrounds the pool. The general manager did have a question about, even though it is late in the process, the pool actually being on the west side. My question is specifically, if the pool is outdoors, what is the type of barrier that surrounds the pool? The second question is the walkway from William Street to the library lot. I did see in this presentation that there is a fence. My question would be, does the fence go all the way from William Street back to Library Lane? What is the height of the fence? And what is the material of the fence? Because there will be, and we know from personal experience that a lot of people do walk the parking lot from William Street back to Library Lane. This will probably increase. We would like a little bit of privacy. I can't speak for the other houses behind us. And with the townhouses, if I understood it correctly, townhouses being on the first floor, that will be added traffic. So just that, just looking for answers about that. Those are the 2 or 3 considerations. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there other speakers that would like to address the commission at this time?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Ken Garber, 28 Haverhill Court again. I was glad to hear from Mr. Savoy that this will be an all-electric building. However, I couldn't find anything in the draft development agreement about this, which worries me. I hope this can be clarified tonight. You'll recall that with the Briarwood project that you looked at a couple months ago, this became an issue. The Simon Group did want to include their all-electric project, which was 354 apartments, sporting goods store, and a grocery in the development agreement, but could not secure assurance from DTE that the capacity would be there. Now, this was clarified at City Council earlier this month when Councilmember Dish did say that the electrification of the Briarwood project would actually be added to the development agreement. So my question is, why isn't it in the draft? Is there some question about this? And I strongly suggest that if there isn't a firm commitment in the development agreement for all electric project, that you do postpone until such time as this can be verified, because you're the final word on it. You're on this project. The current language requiring documentation of LEED Gold certification as part of the building permit application does not in any way cover this. And finally, in an October 17th memo, OSI asked the petitioner for documentation on two things. One, battery storage, and two, any of the following: passive house certification, living building challenge certification, or LEED Zero in each LEED category: carbon, energy, water, and waste. 2 months later, on October 13th, OSI was still waiting for a response before signaling an approval recommendation. So, that's my other question, what gives on that? I'll leave it at that, and thank you for considering my concerns.
Thank you, Mr. Garber. Are there other folks that would like to speak that are present in the commission at this time? Give it a few more seconds. Seeing no one, I'm going to close. And are there folks that would like to speak remotely for the
There is
in-person?
one hand raised, Mr. Chair. Actually, two now. Our first caller is Samuel Hayes. You have permission to address the commission for 3 minutes.
Thank you very much for your time tonight, Commission. I'm here for the main public thing, but I will comment on this specific development. I was browsing around online a bit as the gentleman, Mr. Savoy, was making his excellent presentation, and I see that the Hub Ann Arbor starts at $18.99 per person for a 2-bedroom. So I know the planning committee here, or commission, my apologies, isn't in charge of all the city's issues, but I think as elected and or appointed officials, you all should work towards the better goal of maybe getting people housed appropriately. And I'm not sure if almost $2,000 a head for rent is probably where you want to start driving rent prices towards. And perhaps you want to discuss with the developer if their next installation is going to be just as expensive as this one. I know I live in Ypsilanti, but I used to live in Ann Arbor, and I do work in Ann Arbor, and I'm actually a union person at Washtenaw County, and I have a lot of people who cannot afford to live in Ann Arbor because a lot of the rental opportunities in Ann Arbor and its outskirts are trying to find some type of competition with developers that you approve, such as Mr. Savoy and his compatriots that he represents. And I would really encourage the planning committee to now and in the future to possibly just take that into consideration. In-game capitalism is a thing. We're going through a lot of hyperinflation. More and more people are getting pushed out of the city. to where only the people that can quote unquote afford it can be here. And then at the same time, you also have a homeless issue because things get more expensive in Ypsi. They can't live out there, so they come back here and circle back around to becoming your issue again. Well, not your specific issue, but I think we need to grab the dragon by all parts of its body here, its foot, its tail, its mouth, its ear, everything, and try to deal with these things in a responsible and appropriate manner. I also heard the two gentlemen who went before me and the people they represent, and I think those are some very, very, very valid concerns. I've been keeping up with some of the developer pitches going on around here in the city, and I think some of our officials might be getting sold a type of golden goose that just lays regular eggs. And in the meanwhile, as I said before, a lot of us are just paying the cost of such. So thank you so much for making yourselves available to the public in this manner. I know it cannot be easy to do the work that you do and be scrutinized for it as well. And keep up the good work, everyone. Thank you so much. Goodbye.
Thank you, Mr. Hayes.
Our next caller is Brandon Dimchuff. You have permission to address the Planning Commission.
Hello, Planning Commission. My name is Brandon Dimchuff. I live in the 4th Ward. While I wish that there was a Core Spaces building on the parking lot that is next door to this, I am glad to see something being built in this area after sort of a long stagnation. I know this isn't really a Q&A session, but like it's my understanding that this is a by right project under the current zoning, and so the fact that it's all electric is not even, I mean, as far as I understand, we can't even require that. It's just something that the developers decided to do. And this is basically a ministerial approval sort of operation here. So I guess I will say that I appreciate that it is going to be all electric, even if it's not written into a development agreement that we can enforce, since as far as I know, we have no leverage over that. I appreciate and I will take them at their word. And also, I would just like to say thanks for your comments about how the changes in the premiums have affected financing for these projects. I think some of us suspected that the previous premium regime had killed a few projects because it was too complicated and onerous to make projects pencil out. And so it's good to know that fixing them has yielded a viable project that otherwise was unable to get financing. So thanks for that. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Timchuk. Ms. Kelly, any other speakers?
Yes, there is one other speaker. Alex Lowe, you have permission to address the Planning Commission.
Hi, Planning Commission. Happy holidays. Just wanted to say that I think the developer missed out on one particular public benefit that these, by my view, these buildings already, or this change will provide, and that is an aesthetic improvement to that block. I think the current plan looks way better than what's on there currently. I do kind of wish that that this building were taller. It is going to be built less than 600 feet from Tower Plaza, and it's Tower Plaza is, I believe, 26 floors. So this is going to be sort of metaphorically living in a shadow. I'd like to see some more height, but you know what? Given our recent history in Ann Arbor of barely getting anything, I think this is a great start. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Lowe. Any other speakers?
There is one other late hand raise, which is Adam Goodman. You have permission to address the commission.
Hi, Adam Goodman again. Just kind of thinking about the comment that Mr. Lowe just made, I read the staff report for this, and it looks like the building does come pretty close to maxing out the allowable height for this particular D1 overlay. However, the UDC also has a provision that can grant a 30% height bonus if there is a sustainability component to the project, and that's defined as when and where a solar collector surface covers at least 60% of the building's footprint area, and the electrical panels of the building have capacity to solely power the site by electricity. Obviously, if the building is going to be all electric, the second half of that clause is already satisfied. So I guess the only question would be whether it's possible to install solar at that scale. You know, Ann Arbor is facing a housing crisis, as we sort of heard tonight, and we need more housing at all, you know, all income levels, including market rate. I'd love to see us get every last unit out of this site that we possibly could. So I wonder if the developer considered that. Other than that, it looks like a great project. I'll just say, as a frequent user of the William Street Bikeway, one fewer curb cut is, you know, not to be understated as a benefit. So, yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Goodman. Do we have any other callers?
There are no other hands raised.
Okay. With that, I will just one more second. With that, I'll close public comment. Thank you. I'm going to read the proposed motion. The Ann Arbor City Planning Commission approves the 333 East William Street site plan and recommends approval of the development agreement in compliance with Ordinance 23-32, which adjusted downtown premiums and takes effect December 24th, 2023. Moved by Commissioner Weatherby, seconded by Commissioner Mills. We are in discussion. Commissioner White.
I'll kick us off. So first of all, to staff, Mr. Cheng, this is by right.
That's correct, with the ordinance amendments.
Okay, great. So just want to make sure that this isn't going to City Council. This is staying here.
The site plan is, the development agreement does move on to City Council for review and approval.
Okay, great. So then to the development team, a couple things. So one, thank you so much for bringing this development to us, transforming this, one-story bank into a 16-story residential unit and bringing almost 600 folks into this area. So appreciate that. Thanks also for not including a lot of parking, because usually that's the first thing that I ask is, why so much parking? So I'll ask it anyway. Why 4 spaces and not 0 spaces for parking? We'll start with a soft one.
So honestly, this project was designed back when FAR was a concept. Now that FAR is being removed, it's not so much of a concept anymore. But at the time, we ran out of FAR, to be frank with you, and therefore we programmed 4 parking spaces right there at the bottom. We thought it would be good operationally to have just parking spaces for staff. And so that was really the reason why.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for exceeding the required bike parking, but I do want to make a recommendation for you to consider. Traditionally, you use these inverted U-shaped bike loops, and I would recommend that you use a post and ring bike design. Boston has a bike design guide where you can look at it. It meets all of the criteria for the city's code. It's durable. It allows for U-locks on the wheels, but one of the things that it does that the inverted U does not do is it allows for the locking of multiple bike types. So as opposed to just traditional ones. So you can get your cargo bikes in there, you can get your recumbent bikes in there, and it doesn't take up as much space. So you might actually be able to achieve a little bit more bike parking. I think the other thing were just some of the questions that came from public comment. So I wanted to give you an opportunity, and I'll just start it off, and then if other commissioners wanted to pick up some of the other questions. One, does the fence go all the way from Williams to Library Lane?
It will.
Okay. And then the other one, and this was just a consideration, is there access to your building at that fence line between Williams and Library Lane?
There will be access directly to townhomes from that pedestrian.
But not to the other residences, not to the lobby or the first floor area?
There will be a kind of a secondary fire egress point from the leasing office out onto that that is not anticipated to be used unless there's an emergency.
Okay. And then on the lighting, I saw that you wanted to make sure that that was well lit, and I just want to encourage that as well, that there wouldn't be sort of blind spots along that fence line between the building, just for pedestrian safety and people traveling, because they're going to use the space as one of your neighbors indicated. So anything you can do to make sure that that's lit all the way through. And then I was going to ask about the all-electric in the developer agreement, but because this is by right, that we wouldn't be able to require that. Is that correct, Mr. Chen?
May not be required, but they have committed to it, and we can add a standard paragraph to the development agreement before it goes on to city council. So we can look up some standard language.
Yeah, if you all are amenable
willing
to it,
to.
it'll certainly go a long way for us. And then the pool. So is it indoor, is it outdoor, and how do you handle objects that might be thrown from the 15th floor?
So it is an outdoor pool. It would be open from April to October, roughly from dusk to dawn every day. There would be a 6-foot tall glass railing surrounding it. In the renderings, it's set back enough that you can't see it. In the elevations, you should be able to see that 6-foot tall glass railing that actually encloses the entire kind of rooftop terrace area. We also have cameras up there. And kind of disciplinary language in our lease to discourage that kind of behavior. Given that there's no sports court up there or anything, something being thrown off the roof would be an intentional act and not an accident. And so we do have language in our lease allowing us to basically fine residents and with parental notification, and then after several incidents, they eventually get evicted. So we do have clauses in the lease that allow us to deal with behavior like that is just dangerous and inconsiderate to neighbors.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other commissioners? Commissioner Weatherby.
All right, so I have just some kind of combination of comments and questions. First, I really like the townhouse coming out to the first floor. The building has been built in my neighborhood with that, and it's a really nice way of making a tall building still connect to the neighborhood and having the sort of older style connection to the neighborhood and not just kind of a people who live up in the sky versus the people who live on the street. And it's a nice, I really like it. It works well in our neighborhood. I think it's going to work well here. I also like the mid-block crossing. I think that's a really good thing, and it really helps for a lot of people who are going through that area. I did have some questions. So I think a lot of, they're kind of all part of, so what is facing William street. And I know you'll notice that some people call it Williams and some people call it William, and that's a long-standing Ann Arbor tradition of not actually knowing what that street is named. But what is facing William? Because that is still the front, correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
And so that would all be leasing office and amenity space, so all active use. Our main entrance is relatively in the center of the building. To the right would be the main leasing office suite. To the left is what we call our annex. It's about 2,600 square feet of study area. And we have different kind of study furniture arrangements, ranging from kind of a cafe type feel to a more kind of enclosed, like conference room style of study room.
Okay. Thank you. That's great. I walk by a lot of those style buildings, and it's nice. It makes for a good feel on the sidewalk. But that brings up a question for me, and I don't know if this is something that's more of a city-related issue. Drop-off and delivery. How are you looking? Because drop-off and delivery will always happen at the door where people go in and out, and that looks to be on the Williams side, and I think that's the appropriate place for it, but how are you looking at drop-off and delivery? Because with the bike lane right there, what keeps that bike lane open other than hopes and prayers?
Well, as part of removing the meter spaces along Library Lane for fire access, we're actually proposing to make that 10-minute parking. So drop-offs and deliveries can actually occur from the north, and there's a back door for that. So we're proposing to kind of, train our staff and residents to use that exit point as a place for drop-off and delivery that would keep traffic out of the bike lane, because we didn't want to kind of inundate that bike lane with Ubers and Amazon trucks.
Okay, and will that back door have sort of a nice space, or is it just going to be like, what I've noticed is if there is a back door like that, if it is just sort of a stairwell that goes into kind of a darkened area, people are not going to use it. They're going to use the front door, and deliveries are going to use the front door. So is there going to be like a space that's something other than just a full metal door sort of area, Go ahead.
It would be a glass door with overhead lighting. Certainly a secondary entrance, for sure. There's no glossing over that fact, but not a solid door. We want it to be obvious. We're treating that as a second front of the building because that is a street. And so we would have no solid doors along that frontage.
Okay. Okay. And I think maybe this might be something for the city to also look at, of sort of actual bollards somewhere along that bike lane so that cars can't park there. I don't know how, between the fire department and, being able to access the space and how that all works, but I just think that's going to be a really tricky space there.
I would say there is currently some kind of barrier proposed there. Scott Betzel, who is our civil, can kind of may chime in on the particular type of barrier. I believe it's the plastic type that would discourage cars from pulling into that bike lane, but in the event of a fire truck would need to pull in there, and so for that reason, I believe it was some kind of plastic barrier.
Yeah. Okay,
I have just promoted Mr. Betzold. He's a virtual attendee, so if you would like that response.
Sure.
Mr. Betzold.
I kind of threw that to him without warning him, so.
That's all right.
He's up to
it. Good evening, this is Scott Betzold. I'm from Midwestern Consulting. I'm sorry, as I got transferred as a panelist, I lost a few seconds of the conversation. I think you were asking about the barricades in the bike lanes, or is it something else?
between the traffic and the bike lanes to discourage cars from pulling into the bike lane to use that as a temporary drop-off.
Yes, actually, those barricades were taken directly from recommendations from the DDA representatives. I can't quote the make and model, but it's currently the ones that they're using on State Street, the newer portion of State Street that was just converted. They're the white model that you see at the northern end of State Street just before Packard, excuse me.
Okay.
They're on page 12 of the site plan.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Mills.
I'll follow up on that because these are exactly the questions that I have. I'm really excited. I'm a regular cyclist, that's the right word, sorry, on what my family calls the bicycle highway, which is lovely. And having one fewer curb cut there will be great. One of the questions that I had was about drop off. And I was looking at the site plan to see kind of what was happening. If the places where your 4 parking spots are will end up being the place where the Ubers pull in, but it seems unlike, I don't know. I'm curious to this about where is the mail room here? I'm not seeing that marked because I actually think it's more the delivery stuff that may be problematic. And so where's the mail room?
So there was a diagram that I presented that showed the trash route for the Hammerhead turnaround where the trash truck would actually back up into the building.
Yeah.
That's actually a loading dock. So the mail and the building's deliveries could be dropped off there. Right inside that door would be the mail room on one side and the bike room on the other side. So people with bikes or with loading packages would be relatively easy from a programmatic standpoint. We're talking about Uber Eats and Ubers. That's really what we're contemplating for that north side of the building. But the actual building's deliveries and drop-offs will be through the loading dock, which is off of that alley to the west side.
So that's where Amazon and FedEx and, well, I mean, it's not FedEx, but UPS post office.
Can I share a screen?
Yes, I was just came here to say that.
Okay.
I think I'm following along with the site plan, but looking.
Had to close it for the public comment, but we can go back to that.
Okay, so I think you can see this. So this is the ground floor plan. And so you can see that Hammerhead turnaround marked in the purple arrow there. Mm-hmm. That's actually a loading dock. Whenever trash is not being taken out, could be used as a loading dock for the building's deliveries. You see the bike room right up against the edge of that loading dock. And then mail is actually the gray square that's directly underneath that last townhome, the southernmost townhome. That package room. So you could actually receive mail from the drop-off area and load that package room directly from the loading dock area.
It looks to me, I mean, like the door is only exterior for the mailroom. Is that true?
That should not be. And if it is, then this is an earlier version because I believe that there is a mailroom there. Ashvini, can you confirm? Yes. I just want to be as accurate as possible as to where that mailroom is. And Ashvini is in the audience.
Yeah, hi, this is Ashvini. There's a mailroom right, like Andy was pointing out, when the drop-off happens, you can see that yellow sort of corridor. Through that, you could access, and then the mailroom would be just below that, the mail and package room.
Okay.
Does that make sense? No.
Where is it in relationship to the elevators that are right there in the middle?
It's just to the right side of the elevators.
Okay, so it's shown in here. So it was where he was pointing. Oh, that's marked as mechanical, or is it the one that's ECC?
Well, it's not, the layout is not shown yet. It's
Okay.
actually an interior layout, so it's
Okay.
not been, yeah.
I got it. So it will be, right here, it's just shown as an exterior
Correct.
access door, but it will be from the inside.
That's correct, yep.
Okay. And similarly, actually, this is helpful that we're talking about this. I was curious how bikes are getting to the bike storage, because I appreciate where it is. I appreciate that it's ground floor. I was surprised that there's not an external door to make it easier rather than going through the corridor.
Right, there is also, you can see that access that Andy was talking about as the secondary, or the secondary main door from the library lane.
Yeah.
So there is that external access there, yeah. So you could just come down and get to the bike from that side.
Yeah, I mean, the reality is, I think that more people are going to be taking the bicycle highway, just the way that it works. So they're going to be coming more likely from Williams. So as things finalize, just thinking about whether there's a way to give them access from where you've got the cars parked.
Yeah,
We hear you. That's something we can do.
Yeah, definitely.
Actually, and that led to my other question, which is, how's bike parking working at the hub? Do you know? That was the one that you showed, right? That's yours.
Right. So we sold that in 2019. So
Okay, so you don't know how that's working? Because that's one of the things, like, I want to make sure that if we're providing, it's amazing to have the infrastructure, but it needs to be used. We want it to be used. You want it to be used too, right? So I'm just curious about that experience. So if packages, if some of the vehicles that tend to stay around for a while are parked and they come in that curb cut, I think that's not a bad solution. I mean, I would rather have that than double parked out on the street, or certainly in the bike lane. And the idea that you can turn around there, I think, is really helpful. One of the things that caught my eye, I'm in favor of building up to the lot line, but there is a lot of foot traffic and a lot of bicycle traffic, and this is only 5-foot setbacks. So I'm really glad that, first of all, people aren't going to be backing out, but having that 5 feet there, I think is going to be real helpful, just to be able to see pedestrians. And the other reason that if there's any possibility of having external access to that bike room is that if there are bikes going in there, it's going to slow any traffic that decides to use that down, hopefully. So I appreciate also lower, not having as much parking, vehicular parking. I think that's great. I'm curious if, while you've got the slides up, you showed some, there's a question about what is the fence along the eastern property line, and is the picture indicative of kind of what you're imagining?
That is correct. Ashvini, can you clarify, is it wood or metal? I thought it was a metal slat system, but I'm not 100% sure.
Yeah, it's a metal system. It's a faux wood, just wood finish, but it's going to be a metal system.
Right. And so the intent there is a 6-foot tall fence. We did want to create privacy for the adjacent neighbors. And so by having this slatting, we didn't want a solid fence, but we could still get a lot of opacity that way. And we didn't want to pollute the adjacent properties with our light as well. So that's another reason why we chose that.
Okay. Thank you for clarifying that. I got my questions on another thing. I also, we talked about this at the last, if you're amenable with inclusion of all electric in the development agreement, that I think would go a long way. So as I was making my notes, was that asked of the petitioner specifically? Are you?
I mean, I asked it, but it's a by right development, so
Right.
they could choose not to do it.
Right. And I guess that's just
I'll
a
tell you
question
this.
for you. Is that something that you're interested in?
I'm amenable to it. I would prefer to have some kind of language that says that if DTE just can't serve us, then then that could somehow be reconsidered. But we've had about 6 meetings with them. They think they can serve us, and the building is 90% designed right now as all electric. So it would be a massive undertaking to go back and redesign it with a gas connection at this point.
Got it. Thank you. Also, I just want to note, because you're not taking the additional, there's a number of things, but I really appreciate that the development agreement does include LEED Gold. And I was actually a little bit confused by OSI's staff report about minimal LEED, because LEED Gold is the second highest. I know it's not in the, it's not the zero, it's not the specifically about carbon, but I don't profess to be a LEED expert, but I really appreciate that that's not required. That, I think, were all of my questions. I think that this will be a great addition. Actually, before I hand it over, I'm really curious about what's possible now under the change to our downtown district, or to the premiums, that you're thinking about in the other developments that you were talking about. I mean, you mentioned for us right now that, you know, not worrying about FAR might have meant maybe fewer parking spots. Is there anything else that, from a development perspective, that you would like planning commissioners to know about these changes?
I would just say that it was a very smart move, I think, to amend the UDC and remove the premiums. I think that basically took this project from being a very slim chance of getting financed to a much more solid chance, and it's very financially viable because of that, and that came at the exact right time. So I would say kudos for that. The other projects we are looking at would be planned developments, so that would be its own negotiation and its own whole thing. And so affordability would come into that. There's a lot of different things that come into that conversation. This one, just being by right, I think you're certainly heading in the right direction. And if you want, I think the solution to a housing crisis is more housing, and you're certainly going to get that with what you've done.
Thanks.
Thank you. Any other commissioners? Commissioner Hammerschmidt.
Thank you. I remember when I first heard, and I don't remember when I first heard about the credit union, I think this there, going up for redevelopment, and I was really, really excited to hear that. I think this is a really great place for this type of project, so I'm very supportive. Anything that I'm saying or asking is really just curiosity and clarification. So I just wanted to ease your mind at least a little bit with that. Sure. And it's really helpful to hear the feedback on the premiums removal and how that is helping this project to be able to move forward. I really like the variety of unit types that you're including in this building. This location is very walkable to campus. It's also walkable to downtown businesses, and it's a really good downtown location. And I think you mentioned somewhere, I read in your presentation somewhere, it's not exclusively marketed to students, which is great, but a lot of what you said about the leases makes me think that, I mean, there will probably be a lot of students, but like, I'm trying to pretend like I'm not as old as I am, and I'm like in my young 20s, and I'm not a student, but I might want to live downtown. And it makes me curious about the approach to soundproofing between units and what you're thinking about there. Is it designed to any specific
There
rating?
is, and Ashvini would know better, but there is a sound transmission coefficient that we designed to where there is sound insulation between units and actually between bedrooms, so that sound transmission is not an issue.
Mm-hmm.
We operate a lot of student housing properties. We expect that this will be very attractive to a student resident, and so we would expect a lot of students here. That sometimes comes with really spending the money on the sound dampening between unit walls. So I don't know, Ashvini, if you could elaborate a little bit. I'm not an expert on that, but there is a sound transmission coefficient.
I know the numbers, and I know what that is. So if you tell me.
So if you already know, I think it's well, we are going to be doing a STC 55 between the corridors and the units,
Mm-hmm.
and between the units, we'll be doing an STC of 50,
Okay.
which usually takes care of that sort of sound.
60's
concern.
better, but okay, that's good. It's not 30. You mentioned too something about, access to recycling and trash, and I was wondering about composting, and if you were going to make that available, if that's, I think I'm channeling Councilmember Dish when I ask this question, but Is there anything you're doing for composting?
We had not included that, and we were getting that question in kind of the early stages of the other projects that we're working on. We have not included that, short answer, in this project. If that's something that catches on and that we see a giant need for, I think we could figure out a way to do it. It would have to be something where the residents would carry their compost down to the trash room, and that we would have a container for it there, so there wouldn't be a special chute for it. But it's something that we would certainly adapt to if it's valued and needed by the residents.
Awesome. Sounds great. When I was looking at your site plans, what is a trophy room?
So that is a cool lounge hangout room that is adjacent to a rooftop terrace. We call it a trophy room. We have our own special names for all of our amenity spaces. So the annex is the thing I mentioned earlier. That's the study room. The trophy room is kind of lounge hangout area that's adjacent to a pool deck.
Okay, I was like, what kind of trophies are going on in this room? This is a big space for trophies. Okay, cool. I guess the only last thing I'll say, you've mentioned, I think I've gotten from you a commitment to sustainability, and you had all those things outlined, and then in OSI's comments, they mentioned red list free in materials, and I would just encourage you to look for declare labels, like look for red list free materials. Feel free to reach out to me because I've been doing this for my current job, and there's a lot of really great products at low cost that could be used. I think they'd be really good for a project like this. For example, Forbo Marmoleum is a really good product that could be good for multifamily. I think that's all that I wanted to say. Oh, I really love the dark color. So I think this is going to be really great, a really great addition to our community.
Yeah,
it's my favorite color is like dark gray, so thank you so much.
Thank you. Any other commissioners? Okay, I think most of the questions I had have been addressed, just kind of going through, talked about the pool, talked about one question on the development agreement with respect to LEED Gold. It said that it's going to be designed to LEED Gold standards, but not necessarily actually achieving or maintaining the certification. So do you guys have an intent to continue to, because I think it's like a cycle, you have to keep getting the certification. Can you just talk to me about the intent there? The design is great, obviously, that makes for a baseline, and most resi doesn't get like redesigned, right, like commercial space. But is there a kind of a commitment to continuing to get certification?
Yeah, I'm going to let Andy speak to that.
I think we certainly would be willing to do that. So the intent was actually to comply with the UDC before it was amended, and there were certain FAR bonuses related to different levels of LEED. I believe that required certification, and we were ready to do that. So that is something we would certainly be willing to do.
Gotcha. Yep. No, I was just making the clarification that the development agreement, as it states, just simply says it's going to be designed to those standards. So just a slight distinction. Aside from that, I think that echoing Commissioner Hammerschmidt, I think it does actually make a really nice contrast in materiality. So I think that your collaboration with the design review board, as well as the glazing, the fall wood, I think it does create a better sense of place. Certainly better than a one-story bank. So just to try to keep this more brief, and for the benefit of the petitioner, at the beginning they did ask if there is any kind of hesitation, because it requires, this is a kind of a rare circumstance in which there's only 6 members. So I'm going to just kind of give you at least a preview that I am in favor of this particular project. I would like to just get a sense from other folks where they stand, just for the benefit of the petitioner. We're not voting right now, but I'm just getting a temperature. Yeah. Do we have anybody that has reservations with respect to this project, that it does not meet the by right standards of the UDC? Okay. With that, do we have any other further comments? Seeing none, I think we can move forward to a roll call vote. McSkelly.
On the motion as presented, Chair Lee.
Yes.
Commissioner Weiss.
Yes.
Commissioner Hammerschmidt.
Yes.
Commissioner Clark.
Yes.
Commissioner Mills?
Yes.
Commissioner Weatherby?
Yes.
That motion carries.
Congratulations. Good luck.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
We appreciate it.
All right, we are moving on to agenda number 10, other business. I do not see any, so we are moving on to item number 11, which is public comment. This is a second opportunity for persons to speak up to 3 minutes about any issue that is not listed as a public hearing on this agenda. We'll first call on individuals that are here to present to the commission, and then remote participants to speak during this public hearing remotely. Please press *9 if listening by phone, or use the raise hand feature if viewing through the web link. For phone access, please call 877-853-5247 and enter meeting ID 977-6634-1226. City staff will select callers that have raised their hands using the last 3 digits of the phone number or by name if available. You'll hear an automated announcement that the host is allowing you to speak, and when speaking, please move to a quiet area, mute background noises so we can hear you clearly. For either method of participation, please state your name and address. At the beginning of your comments, is there anyone present that would like to speak to the commission at this time? Mr. Garber.
Just one moment, Mr. Garber, so I can pull up our timer. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Lee. This is so different than last night when there were over 60 speakers at City Council. So I like this better. I think, by speaker 30, the council's eyes were just glazed over, and it's like, well, understandably. So it's nice to have your attention. I'm just going to say something historical that should make you feel better about your vote, the vote you just took. I'm a lot older than any of you, and I remember when this credit union building was actually built. And it was controversial because they took down several homes to build it. It just didn't sit well with a lot of us. And now it's going to come down, and we're going to get a lot of housing, and I think that's a nice circular conclusion to this tale. So thank you for all your concern about housing and for everything that you do, your incisive questions, your thorough review. Very much appreciate the work that you do as volunteers. So that's all I wanted. I just wanted to give you a little bit of historical background. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Garber. Any other speakers that are present? Seeing none, are there any remote speakers at this time?
There's one hand raised. Samuel Hayes, you have permission to address the Planning Commission.
Hello, Planning Commission. I would just first like to say thank you again for the time that you all spend on your community. I do definitely agree that a way through the housing crisis is, in fact, more housing. So thank you again for taking this time in your community under all this scrutiny, doing it in public, and all those good things. So since this is public comment, I would like to show up to speak about the ongoing development that will be going on at Galleria Mall. The owners of Pinball Pete's couldn't make it down tonight, but the last time we were at the design planner committee, the developers presented that they were speaking to the owners about how to incorporate them into their design. And I was there with the owners, and they said that the developers had not spoken to them yet. So I would hope as of now that they've reached out to them. I just got off the phone with him. He did not indicate that the developers had reached out to them at all. So please don't make this city, like New York, but without the culture, because that's what removing all those pinball machines and a safe space and a dry place for all of those college students and even older people would do. So, just something to think about. I will be showing up to those meetings and speaking on behalf of Pinball Pete's at that time as well. But I really think that we need to kind of sort of take a minute and talk about approving these new developments in the city of Ann Arbor. I'll be speaking to the people of Ypsilanti and Pittsfield as well at these exorbitant prices. I think someone on the council was right to question that the units were being pitched as for everyone, when in fact they were probably only for students whose parents or scholarship could afford these units. because I know I can't be as old as Mr. Garber, but when did we start charging per person and per bed rather than just for the whole thing? And we're talking $2,000 per person or per bed. Maybe as part of some of your guys' conversation, I couldn't even begin to imagine the complexities of what you all deal with. Maybe as some of your conversations with these developers, we can talk about prices. I know we don't have rent caps. I'm hitting that on the legislative side as well. Don't worry, and this isn't the place for that. But maybe we can discuss with them something about, you know, keeping the prices down. The money that these students or whomever saves on rent, they're going to spend in your city. They're going to spend it in Washtenaw County. Heck, they're just going to spend it in America, period. And what's good for the goose is good for the gander, and really kind of helps keep all of our streets clean and keeps everybody inside homes. Thank you again so much for being here for the public. There's probably other people who could do the job, but you're the ones doing it right now, and I think you deserve a whole lot of credit for that, and you guys should give yourself a lot of credit for that. Thank you so much, and have a great day.
Thank you, Mr. Hayes. Ms. Kelly?
There are no other hands raised.
Thank you. I'll give it 2 more seconds. It's like 5. Okay, with that, I will close public comment. We're moving on to agenda number 12, commission proposed business. Are there any other commission proposed business? Happy holidays, I will say that. Oh, Commissioner Hammerschmidt.
This isn't really commission proposed business, but I just wanted to thank Mr. Chang for all of his years of service. I'm glad that you came to see us before you retired, and I hope that you enjoy your retirement. You look like you're not over like 40 years old, so I don't even understand. Like, how are you retiring so young? And tell us all your secrets. But thank you so much. And if you have any exciting, like, I remember when fun stories from your years on planning staff, like we just heard the fun bank story from Mr. Garber, we'd probably love to be regaled with them.
Well, a quick one just happened today. I had probably my last pre-submission meeting. It's called Northside Corners, which is at Pontiac Trail in DeVaron, but as Scott Betzel and Brad Moore pointed out, we worked on that project back in 1999 together. So it's coming full circle, you know, even, 24, 25 years later, so.
Wow. I will piggyback on that, and thank you.
Well,
thank you for your many years of service, and the city really owes you a great gratitude, so.
I'll miss the people.
Yeah.
I really will. That's what you miss the most.
From what I understand, the secret is swimming at the Y. That's what I've heard.
It's supposed to be really good for you.
The YMCA pool opened today, and I did go for a swim today, so there you go. Swimming does not hurt.
Thank you for bringing that up, Commissioner Hammerschmidt. Any other commission proposed business? Seeing nothing else, I'm going to move to adjournment. Moved by Commissioner Weich, seconded by Commissioner Mills. We are adjourned.